Our second bedroom was a relic of a very old childhood room, including the old fairy tale light, which was incredibly creepy. You can see Humpty Dumpty in there. We removed the old damaged floors, salvaging everything we could, and made the window from scratch using those reclaimed materials. The insulation and plaster went in, and in this project, we're focusing on building the custom wardrobe, fitted out with mirrors, drawers, and plenty of hanging space.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be making a start on this built-in wardrobe for our spare bedroom, which will be, for the next couple of years, pretty much our main bedroom while we renovate the back of the house. So this here, we've sort of designed the bulkhead behind us to give us a nice height for a full sheet and pretty much work in an enormous built-in wardrobe. So this is going to be a really exciting project. There's going to be some little bits and pieces in here that we haven't done before. However, the majority of this build is going to be pretty much identical to all of the other joinery that we've built. So that's included for the office cabinetry behind us and then the front room cabinets that we did underneath those bookshelves. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that detail, check out those couple of videos. We'll provide some links. But otherwise, we'll most likely fly through the content of putting together all the base cabinets and the doors for this unit. But we will probably focus a little bit more on the different things that we're going to do. So we're probably just going to start off with building all these big units one by one, and then pretty much flat pack, assembling them all together, and then installing them all in one piece. And then from there we can talk a little bit further about the detail. So we just started putting these space cabinets together for our wardrobe. I've already made the kickers, they're in place. That was pretty straightforward, like what we've done in the past. And I was getting ready to stand up this absolutely massive cabinet. It's like 2.4 by 900, the thing's huge. And I went to go stand it up and realised it just didn't fit. It was way too long. And a quick measurement turns out I'd never cut the top of these panels down. So I've only cut like the width of these out of a full sheet, but because they're so close to 2.4, I just assumed I'd cut the top. I haven't. So I put the whole thing together, didn't fit. So what I'm gonna do is actually cut it down at exactly how it's sitting at the moment. Essentially, I'm just gonna run the track saw over the top of these cabinets. And then with it all screwed together, I can just flip it on all three sides and then just trim the tops of it off. The whole lot will stay together. It means I don't have to disassemble the entire unit, and I can just chop it all off in place. So, and then reinstall the top piece back on again. And then this will fit perfectly within the space. What it's also shown when I was doing some measurements and things like that, which is so critical to measure a few times before you start cutting things. Of course, that's the old trick, measure twice, cut once. It's left the same measurement issue has left our center cabinets a little bit too short. So what we're going to have to do is just try and elongate or lengthen one of the smaller cabinets in the middle, try and hide the difference in the sides and over the doors and things like that. So it's a little bit annoying, but also it's actually given us the opportunity to add in a little bit of something extra. So with that 100mm difference I've been short of, we're going to try and put like a little jewelry drawer or something like that in the wardrobe. So try and make the most of this situation and make it work for us. But anyway, we're going to chop this one down and then keep moving on. So before we screw all of our base cabinets together for this wardrobe, what I'm going to do first is set up all of these drawers. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I want to make sure that everything's screwed in properly with these base cabinets before putting them all together and then screwing them down to the kicker and to the wall for stability. That way I can make sure I get everything right for each unit. So on the left hand side we've got the ducted heating hole I've got to cut out and build a box for that. For these two middle ones we've got to do all the drawers. And then for the outside ones, I don't know if we'll have any dividers or high shelves inside those cabinets. It'll most likely be clothes rails. But just in case, it's easy just to keep it all loose. Make sure I'm happy with absolutely all of them, and then we'll screw them all together at the end. For starters, we're going to get stuck into these drawers. Now, they take a little bit of work and a little bit of measuring. Over here, we've got some drawer slides that we just picked up from the hardware shop, Bunnings. There's a heap of range in different sizes, lengths, and all sorts of bits and pieces. But I've gone for some nice big long ones so that these fit nicely with our depth of our cabinet. And also it's going to give us a really nice reach out too. So we'll be able to use all of this depth rather than only having to be able to pull out maybe 2/3 or a little bit less. We get to use the full range of these depths, so we're going to have lots of storage there, which is going to be awesome. But to set those up, I've just measured out how many drawers I wanted. In between each of them, I'm going to have one of these style rails as well in between each drawer that just helps divide it, and when the doors close, it helps the doors lock into something nice and strong too. It also just helps divide out all the drawers. And after I've sort of done all the measurements, divided my overall opening, sort of made a couple of little blocks. So I'm going to use these to screw in all these little side rails, which is then going to help me then screw in the drawers and then make the drawers. So it's sort of a big step process, but we'll get through it. Now with these rails in, I can measure the drawers, which is the width and the depth and everything like that, now that I've got all this locked in place. And also it's always nice to do this when it's nice and loose. You can pull it out, screw it in from the outside, then you don't see any fixings or any screws or anything like that. And it looks nice and neat from the front. I'm going to measure up all these while it's nice and fresh in my mind. I'm pretty much going to go full depth to suit our rails. I'm going to just go about 15 mil or 10 mil less than this opening, just so it's got a little bit of room. You don't really need to go tight or anything like that, because your door, it's going to go over the top of this and finish and cover all that gap up anyway, so you don't really need to go full depth. But I'm going to just go a nice generous 150, which is going to be perfect for rolling up shirts and stacking things and giving us plenty of space. And for the width, is always a bit of a tricky one working with drawer slides, but I just like to go a mil thicker than the actual rail itself. So essentially I'll just measure this rail. Ours is 12 mil, so I just minus 13 mil off both sides, and that gives me a little bit of play on each end, and enough for a nice tight width of the inner drawer. And that way everything's going to sit nice and snug in that opening. It's not going to wobble around too much. It's going to be a nice tight fit, and it also gives you a little bit of room to play with as well, which is always nice. And then yeah, so we're going to put that aside, and then I'm going to get to these other little cabinets, get everything fixed off, and then once all that's finished, then I'll get to building the drawers. Now I didn't do any footage of me making these drawers because I had to cut 40 pieces, I had to edge 40 pieces, I had to assemble 8 drawers and then put on all the drawer slides. So that's really boring. So instead, you get to see the finished product right now. So after all the measurements and everything that we did, pretty much figured out exactly how we needed to get a nice snug fit to this opening for these drawers. Pretty simple box construction, and these drawer slides just screw straight to the side of these drawers. And now it's just a matter of packing these up off these center rails that I've got in the side here, just so that there's a nice clearance, and essentially just going through and putting all these drawer slides on, which will finish all of our drawers. So it's a bit of a process. It's really tedious because there's just a huge amount to do all at once, but one bit at a time, and we'll get them all in. There we are, all of our new drawers are in. Hot tip with these drawer slides, when you install them, it's best to have these inner runners on ball bearings that slide around on the inside of the runners. Slide them right to the front because you want those to guide in first. If that little roller set of ball bearings is at the back, it can sometimes jam when you try to first slide them on. And then once you start to bend those little brackets and those little ball bearings start to move around a little bit, it becomes really, really difficult. So yeah, definitely slide those right to the front. That way when you slide your drawer straight onwards, it's aligned perfectly and it slides right over those ball bearings. So now that we've finished installing all of our drawers, it's time to get on to the doors. Now we're going to do the same design as what we did in the office and in the living room. Nothing really major difference there in terms of our shaker detail and our molding inserts and things like that. But we are going to do something a little bit special, which was sort of a bit of a curveball late notice. We really wanted to throw in a little bit of design element to this sort of cupboard to make sure it doesn't look like everything else. So what we're going to do is essentially the same design with the molding and the shaker with the inserts. We're also going to be adding in a mirror inside this door panel as well. So a little bit of a change in design in terms of how these are constructed to allow for that extra thickness of mirror that's actually going to be placed inside the shaker detail. So essentially what I've done is I've changed the shaker thickness over with what we've typically done. So for the other doors, I'd used a 12mm MDF with a 9mm shaker. Gives a nice thick 21mm edge for your hinging and things like that, and also makes it give it a bit of body. Whereas for this mirror, what we're going to do is we can use the 9mm backing with a 12mm shaker. That allows us to have a bigger rebate to sit our glass into, and also it's going to make it nice and flush for us to put the molding over the top of the mirror. Which is going to make it look nice and consistent. I'm just going to get to gluing these shakers on, and then we'll go through a little bit more detail about once we get these mirrors and pop them in. Alright, so this morning we picked up our mirror glass, which is just awesome. The guy that we use just down the road from us did it in a morning. So I called him up last night, was like, hey, these are the sizes I need. He's like, mate, no worries. Pick it up from the factory at 9 o'clock the next morning. So really, really handy, amazing service. Love supporting small businesses that really help out their clients like that. So it goes a long way. But we've picked up our mirror glass, 4mm, nice and thin. And it sits perfectly inside these rebates, so good thing I measured them correctly because they're a perfect snug fit. And we're going to just stick our molding on pretty much over the top of it like this. So going to be very consistent with the rest of the doors that we've got in terms of the shaker detail and the molding, but instead of just having the MDF backing that's going to be painted, the ones in the middle here are actually going to be fully mirrored. So really cool, love the design, something a little bit special as well for a bedroom. So we're going to glue these in, finish the molding and get hanging these doors. Use the edging tool to trim all the arrest edges of our fronts of the doors. They're looking nice and smooth. It's time to drill out for the hinges. Just like on our previous videos, we're going to drill out and put in these Hafele hinges. These are a soft close hinge. They're pretty standard. I really like them. They're actually quite cheap too. It was about 100 bucks for a box of 50. So definitely the way to go. We're going to set up with 4 hinges on these big mirrored doors. The recommendation is 4 for, I think, up to 1900, so that's quite a big door. We're only at about 1600 here, but that's just with the weight range of around a 600mm door is optimal for 4. I'm gonna just try 4 first to see how they go. I'm gonna just hang this one door on its own, just to see how 4 of these hinges perform. I'm just a little bit worried that this door is pretty heavy with the mirror inside of it. It might decide to sag a little bit and might be needing an extra hinge somewhere in the middle there. So before I get too far and drill all of them out, I'm just gonna do this one and hang it and see how it goes. Now, a hot tip when you're working with these type of hinges, make sure you pick up one of these Hafele templates. They mark out exactly where you need your holes to be. So they tell you where your plate needs to go onto the cupboard, and it also tells you exactly where to drill that nice big hole in the door. Absolute lifesaver, otherwise you're just trying to measure the perfect millimeter for each hole. You can even use it as a square, a big must when you're using these hinges. So all of those are on now, so let's hang this door and see how it goes. Pretty good.
I love it.
Yeah, so that one did pretty well with the 4 hinges, so I'm pretty happy with that. It is a fairly heavy door, and these hinges are really sturdy with 4 of them. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm going to drill the rest, and we're going to hang all these mirrors in place because they look really cool.
Brad was installing our beautiful mirror doors, I was putting together our drawer fronts. So Brad had already cut these down to size and installed the shaker borders. So all I needed to do was cut down our molding, glue it in place and pin it off with the Bradder gun.
That was great.
Don't these just look awesome? So now all the doors are hung, we've got the task of doing the final adjustment on all of the doors so that we can set our drawer fronts up properly. Now there are a few different ways that you can do drawer fronts, but it's best to get everything nice and perfectly aligned first, and then we get to setting these drawer fronts up. Now there are a few different ways to do it, but I'm going to show you a nice easy way in this setup because you have to screw them from behind, so it's a little bit hard to hold them in place while you do it. So I'm going to show you a little trick about how we get that done. Alright, so for setting up these drawers, what I've done here is adjusted all of the doors, so everything's sitting nice and perfect, nice and straight, all the lines work. I've set up a straight edge here, or a nice level from cupboard to cupboard behind me, which gives me a nice straight line all the way through the bottom. And it's going to allow me to sit these drawer fronts. Well, hello! We have a feature of chai today. So I'm going to set these drawer fronts up on top of this level here, which is going to give us a nice consistent bottom line to work off. And then using some window packers, something like this, I'm going to then space each drawer front above that until it gives me nice even lines all the way through. Now, to get these sitting nicely before screwing them on, the magic trick here is double-sided tape. So a couple of strips of double-sided tape on here, when you're ready to finally fit them all off, all you need to do is just stick them on in place with their packers and things like that. So you can slide a drawer one by one out, and then you can fix them off from behind, and then you can remove the double-sided tape after you've pre-drilled all your holes so it sits nice and flat. That way it allows you to stick them on in place and you can get them perfect and drill them in place without having to let things slip and slide when you try and install the drawer front. So let's get to it and I'll show you how it's done. This one here, our drawers are a little bit deep, so it's not connecting with the double-sided tape, so I'm just going to do another layer on top and that should help. That's a better way of doing it, so taking off the next drawer, then you can reach behind and push the cabinet back into the back of the door. And when we take our packers out, the drawer face is going to stick, and now we can drill it and fix it up. Here we are, complete finished doors for this wardrobe. Super happy with how this came out. It looks just really lovely. This design's just really cool. Love what these mirrors do to this room. It's actually opened up this entire room a bit more. It's really brought a bit of a luxury element into this wardrobe, super custom. It's making these big tall ceilings look fantastic, and this window, it's helping reflect all this light throughout this room. So super happy with how all of this has come out. And now pretty much from here onwards, we just need to putty all the holes and sand everything back, give it a prime, and then get the whole lot ready to get spray painted. Thanks for joining. If you guys have got any questions at all, please write in some comments below. If you need any more information on some stuff, Sam and I are looking into doing some little shorts and also some little step-by-step guides as to how to do some things. So if there's anything that you guys really want to check out further, please let us know and we can try and get some content out there for you guys. But anyway, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and thanks for watching. Bye.